Hello and welcome to For Fox's Sake. This is the preview, mostly looking ahead to Leicester City versus Norwich City on Saturday, but we're going to spend a few minutes early on having a look back at the Borough game on Tuesday night. The games have been coming thick and fast, and we've had podcasts on protests and all sorts, so plenty to get our teeth into here at For Fox's Sake. We've got Tom and Joe with us this evening. If you are watching along live on Facebook, X or YouTube, we would love to hear from you guys as well. So drop your comments in. We'll talk about pretty much anything you want to talk about Leicester City related in the next half an hour or so. A reminder for you before we get going of our website, forfoxsake.news. There is plenty of content on there, as well as the great stuff we do on our shows and podcasts. A lot of talk this week about the protest before the Norwich game, which we will get into, and plenty of things that Andy Moore learned from Tuesday night's game at Middlesbrough that we will attempt to talk through as well. For forfoxsake.news, for that, £5 a month is all you need to pay to subscribe for hundreds and hundreds of articles ranging from news, opinion, features, past and present, and loads of stuff on Leicester's women's team as well. So let's get straight into it. Leicester, another away point under Gary Rowett. So 2 away games, 2 points. And generally speaking, Tom, much improved from my point of view. I don't know what you think.
Well, that's the first game that I've seen in the last few, to be honest, because I'd completely checked out. And I was really impressed. For me, that's a side that wants to fight. That's a side that actually looked like almost putting in 90 minutes, aside from McCauley, perhaps in one little burst. But I'm sure we'll get to that. But for me, I was totally blown away. I wasn't a fan of Gary necessarily, but I wouldn't have known who else to bring in at the time. But I got to say, he's surprised so far. I don't want to speak too soon, but it seems like a lifeline might actually be in the works. And it's brought back my joy for watching, to be honest, at the moment.
Well, clearly, because you said you weren't a massive fan of Gary Rowett, and then 2 games in, and your tagline for those of you listening, Tom's tagline is Gary in. It's taken 2 games and you're in. And Joe, for you, you may, I know you've got a bit of distance UK wise. Tom's got a significant distance as well. But it's Gary Rowett has clearly inspired you, because you're coming up at the weekend for the game as well. You're braving the journey, and you think it might actually possibly be worthwhile.
Yeah, I've come full circle. So yeah, we're down in Somerset, so it's always a bit of a commitment to come to a game. We generally get up to like 5 to 10 every season, but it's 3.5 hour drive. And I booked these tickets. My son's a massive Leicester fan as well, and I booked these tickets at the end of the transfer window, on the sort of little bit of optimism we got from the new signings. And since then, I've gone like all the way around, with the Andy King saga, or saga of results, to going, I don't want to go up to Leicester for this, to going all the way around again. And now we're quite optimistic. And so it's going to be fun, actually. I think Gary Rowett was talking about possibly Jordan James might be back, and Lascelles might be involved as well. So there's a lot of reasons to be cheerful. It's a slightly funny one. There's protests that I will do my best to get involved. I've got a 15-year-old lad with me. He definitely doesn't want to do anything that would be so embarrassing as to be abused in public. He'll be like that. No, Dad, can we go? But I'll protest, and then I'll go inside and I'll back the lads. And I think you can do both. And I'm really up for it. It's going to be good. And we've booked the Holiday Inn opposite the KP, so it's a real treat this time. So we have to win.
We have to, absolutely. Let's just go to the comments. Hello to everybody that's watching with us live this Thursday evening. It's good to have you with us. Manny is saying, nice to see Gary being active on the touchline and trying to keep the players focused. Yeah, absolutely. And Tony as well, good evening to you, saying Rowett has done more in a fortnight than Cifuentes did in 6 months, organised the side and the team show commitment. Yeah, well, it's been a real sort of nobody really blamed Marty Cifuentes. I know that he had to go. Something had to change. He was getting to the point where there was no way he was going to keep us up with the approach that he had, either from a personal point of view or from a footballing point of view. So I don't think he questioned the decision to remove him from his job, but I also don't think a huge amount of people blamed him. And then people were torn. Do we blame the structure of the club? Do we blame the players? And some people went sort of between the two. And I think most of us actually settled on a bit of both. And the players didn't do Cifuentes any favours. I think he spoke really well, Cifuentes. Nice bloke. Had some decent footballing ideas with a different team in a different time, maybe. But it's clear that the lack of sort of drive, determination, and willingness to work from the players is not because they don't have it. It's because they didn't necessarily feel forced to show it, even when it was kind of like the league table and the 6-point deduction is doing us no favors. Gary Rowett's come in, and I don't think he's necessarily a horrible bloke. He's not old school in the sense that he's absolutely going to be gobbing off at the players, but he's given them jobs to do and said, this is how hard you need to work to do your job. And so let's just go back to Tony's point, saying he's done more in a fortnight than Cifuentes has in 6 months. In that sense, I would totally agree. Tom, what do you think?
Has it been a fortnight? I think it's only been like 6 days.
It's probably not. It feels like a fortnight, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's less, which is only more credit to Gary. Look, he knows how to organize a defense, clearly, and that's still something that he's working on. But there is something about the outline of Gary that's actually quite comforting. And I found myself watching him online and thinking, oh, actually, I feel good about this. He kind of cuts a bit like a Tony Pulis figure on the sideline with his cap on and that weathered face. And you just think this is somebody that's been around English football and knows the division. And I know that Cifuentes had that stint with QPR, but I just don't think he fully grasped exactly what's required for this division, but also for this broader situation that we're in. I completely agree with Joe. I'm somebody that sits in between being furious at the structure of the club currently and how it's been organised up until this point. But Marty was not the solution. And I think we've seen that just with the nature of the turnaround and how quickly it's happened. So, yeah.
Yeah, and let's look a little bit at the Borough game then. We haven't got time to go into it in too much detail, but I think apart from an absolute hospital pass by Caleb Okoli, Leicester probably come away with, maybe not totally deserved, but they come away with a 1-0 win, and to do that against second in the league would have been a fantastic result. At the end of the day, we take a point and we that's probably all we deserved. It was interesting afterwards as well that Gary Rowett was willing to speak about it, and he didn't throw Okoli under the bus, but he also made it very clear that was not his instruction. If that was under Cifuentes, some of the blame there would have been laid on the style of football that Cifuentes wanted to play. He would have said, okay, Okoli has been told to play those balls into midfield, but Gary Rowett said, yeah, look, Okoli knows that he should have gone long there, and that's that, and he's kind of left it there. So we now understand from Rowett's point of view that he's not tried to get Okoli to be that ball playing centre back. He should have gone longer. Maybe he even was trying to go longer. Who knows? But mixed bag, Joe, on Tuesday night for Okoli. Fairly easy header for the goal. And he played his part in the defence, not conceding more than one. But then also he did what Caleb Okoli does and managed to put us in a situation that led to us conceding.
Yeah, I mean, if you are a manager trying to make Caleb Okoli a ball-playing centre-back, I don't think you should be in the business, quite frankly. You need your head checked. Yeah, I mean, I didn't actually think he played awfully, apart from it's really hard to see past that awful pass. Really bad timing as well, just before half-time. There's just no need. Everyone, I mean, we were so angry. We were really, really annoyed. But the set piece, great. Mukasa's delivery, I mean, there's a few things we can say about him. I've noticed him on corners. His delivery into the box is really good, as well as most parts of his game for an 18-year-old lad. And it was a good set-piece goal, which we haven't seen many of, and scoring from from balls into the box like that. So that's a real plus. And for both games, the Stoke one, I think we should have won. We kept battling to the end. We didn't go into ourselves. Massive change from what we've seen. Some of the horrendous sort of choking that we've seen from this team this season. So really good first game for Rowett in charge. And then the second one, a draw was probably fair. Begovic, who was my man of the match, had to make a lot of good saves. Tom, last time we were on together, I sort of said, you suggested putting Begovic in. I said maybe stick with the youth if we're gonna go down that road. I was wrong on that front. I think Begovic has done a better job than Jakub. And yeah, just a hell of a lot more grit and determination to go to the end. I think we still could have nicked it. I was watching a stream with the Middlesbrough commentators who started off very full of themselves and gradually quietened down as the game went on, and were quite worried. And they managed to, with our goal, we shut up the stadium and their fans. You could hear the Leicester fans going. So a lot of positives from that. I really think so. And when we were saying 2 weeks, and a no, is it only a week? You think he came in, Gary Rowett. He's literally had 2 days before the first game, or 2 or 3, and then what, the Middlesbrough game was on Tuesday night, so they haven't really done a lot of training. So whatever he says, it's fairly impressive immediate reaction, and that's why I think we're all looking forward to Saturday, thinking, come on, game at home. We can surely get a win for, what is it? It might be our first win in about 100 matches, it feels like.
Something like that. Yeah. Let's have a look at the positives from the Borough game then, as Joe sort of moved us into, before we move on to look ahead to Norwich. We've got Amit with us this evening. Thanks for watching, Amit, saying afternoon from New York City. Mukasa was pure class against Borough. Skip played a great game, and I was Rowett is the back to basics voice that the players need. Absolutely. Let's leave Ayew because we haven't got time to whinge about him this evening. But it was interesting. We will talk about Mukasa specifically in a second. It was interesting. A few different sort of man of the match polls, either the unofficial ones that are happening in your WhatsApp group chats, and we here at For Fox's Sake have got a WhatsApp group chat, and there were a few different nominees for man of the match there, and on Twitter and social media as well. And a lot of people you spoke to would have different ideas for man of the match. And considering we've gone from having 0 men of the match to probably half the team having some reason to be a contender in such a short space of time, is a real positive. And Mukasa, who you've picked out there, Joe, and who Amit's picked out as well. Now, 3 league starts for him for Leicester, 2 goals and 3 assists in that time. And yes, I wouldn't say he's been fortunate, but he's come into a team that is playing a bit better than it was before he signed for us. But I also think he has had some of that impact himself. And for him to be, he comes from Manchester City, he comes highly regarded, doesn't he? But Tom, what have you thought of Mukasa so far? It's 5 games in total. He's 5 appearances, 3 league starts, 5 goal involvements. He looks a quality asset in that attacking third.
He's just different gravy, isn't he? There's not enough plaudits that we can give him. I actually thought the way he played wasn't just technically fascinating. I thought that he was actually quite physical as well, which for somebody that young is seriously impressive. You can see why Man City wanted to give him game time, and he deserves it. I think he could actually be one of the defining factors of our season. And once we get JJ back in the squad, those two combined, I'm more optimistic than I've ever been this entire season, to be honest. So yeah, fantastic performance by him. He was my man in the match by a mile. Everything good that we did, certainly offensively, seemed to go through him.
Yeah, and like Joe said, the quality from the set pieces is also a big difference. It's a conversation that Andy Moore on our social media pages has been having with a few of our followers in the last couple of days. And it's just one that I'm going to sort of plant a seed for you watching and listening at home, and for you too as well, because it's not something that we can cover tonight, but it will come up probably on the next podcast. And that is, when Jordan James is back and fully fit, where on earth does he fit into a team where Skip and Winks were probably two of the leading contenders for man of the match in the centre of midfield? Macassar has made the number 10 position his own in the absence of Decordova-Reid suspended. So getting Jordan James back into that team is an interesting one. I think from what Rowett said today, that's not something that we need to think about for Saturday, because from what we can gather, and he was being quite coy about it, but from what we can gather, Lascelles and James may be part of the match day squad. I doubt either of them will start. We might only see one of the two of them on the bench, depending on how their assessment goes sort of today and probably tomorrow morning as well. They'll be looking at that. So it's just something to think about for the next couple of games, but it's a nice thing to think about because we don't need to think about the defence, and we won't even talk about them because there's no conversation to be had, really. Manny saying, I worry it's another manager giving Luke Thomas game time. When will they learn? No choice now. Christensen's out for the rest of the season. So Luke Thomas has to start at left back unless you bring a Luco in. But I don't think this style of defending is going to harm Luke Thomas, because if you just say to him, look, kick it, head it, and stay at left back, as long as he's got no more instruction than that, he should be able to get by in the Championship. He should. So let's just have a look at a couple of the stats, the sort of picture of the game before we go into what we're expecting to see. So Leicester are winless, not in 100 games, Joe, but eight league games. It feels like 100, but it is actually only 8, and only 8 sounds like a ridiculous statement. Norwich are on a bit of an upturn in form. They've climbed up to 17th, 42 points, 8 ahead of us. They've won 4 of their last 6 games, but all of their wins have come against teams in the bottom 5. So they've won the games against the teams around them, which has dragged them with a little bit of a safety net between them and the drop zone now. Now, this one was interesting. They've won 4 of their last 5 away games, and they'd only won 4 of their previous 31. So they are in very good form away from home. They've got Philippe Clement in since November, ex-Monaco and Rangers. So it would be a good scalp for Leicester, if I can call it that, because it's Norwich in 17th, but it would be a good result in terms of the mentality of the sort of bottom 5, 6, 7 teams in terms of the relegation fight, to say, look, Norwich now not think they're out of trouble, but have beaten everybody around them, to say, okay, we're probably the best of this lot. We're going to get out of this. If we go there and beat them and you close that gap to 5 points and you sort of suck them back into it a little bit, then it means that it kind of announces the fact that Leicester are very much in this relegation scrap and are very much going to scrap for everything they can get. It's a big one for mentality as well as points, Joe, do you think?
Yeah. I mean, our away form, the last 2, hasn't been terrible either, which is nice to say. Yeah, I mean, I think the trouble, I genuinely think, even after this terrible season that we've had, and I just drop in mice if Firenze says, nothing personal against the guy, but what an awful job he did, really. Because I do think we can beat anyone in the league, really. We've just gone toe-to-toe with Middlesbrough, probably could have won it. Stoke as well, probably could have won it, should have won it. And I'm not worried about Norwich, even if they are in some good form. It's not really about the team we're facing. We've shown we can do good halves of football. We've just been so erratic, but we know the talent's there. I'm really looking forward to seeing Jordan James and Mikasa in the same team when it comes. We can score goals against anyone. We know the attack isn't really the problem, even though we don't believe in strikers. And we like to put Jordan Ayew on. But yeah, I'm not worried about it in terms of who we're playing. And the reason we're all a bit more optimistic is, as we say, we've seen this upturn in mentality, in grit, in just fighting for the points and fighting till the end. So it's really down to the guys to do it in front of the home crowd now, really. And I think if they do that, and they put in 100% effort, we've got every chance of beating Norwich.
Yeah, just speaking of strikers, before we get Tom's thoughts, Tony's saying he's concerned that Richards is becoming a new Edouard or Carranza, in the sense that we've hardly seen him at all at the moment. It's an interesting point, and I guess it's an interesting position for him to have come in to, given the fact that we do have more options than any in across the sort of front four, if you count the sort of number 10 position. So yeah, maybe he's got a few roles to play off the bench in a couple of months' time. Young lad, not played a huge amount of senior football. So but I totally take your point, Tony. We need to talk about the protest, because Joe, you were saying just before we came on that that you'll be joining the protest if you can drag your 15-year-old along to be in that kind of crowd. And I think, well, I don't think I'll be alone in saying this, that my viewpoint on it's changed slightly. Now, those of you who've been watching our shows, listening to our podcasts, reading the website, will know that we have deliberately, as an organization, tried to make sure that we're at least listening to both sides of the argument, and I say both sides, it's not just one versus the other, listening to all supporters and trying to put as many different opinions across as we hear, essentially, as a sort of platform for the fans. Now, a few weeks ago, I was in the sort of camp that any protests and stuff should probably be left to one side, because we had a real battle on our hands on the pitch, and I didn't see where things were going to improve on the pitch, although under Andy King, it looked like there was a little bit more oomph about the players, if nothing else. But having written some articles on forfoxsake.news, which you can get for just £5 a month, and Andy and myself have been across this with, I think we've got 4 or 5 different articles around the protest on there from the last week or so. I've kind of come to the understanding, and this is what a lot of people are now also talking about on social media, the sense that because we feel more positive about things on the pitch, and that's what we've covered in the last 20 odd minutes here. I feel like going to the protest and protesting against the owners can now be very much a separate thing, because you're going into the ground with a bit more optimism about what's going to happen on the pitch. Whereas maybe a week or two ago, we were feeling so disillusioned with what was happening upstairs and so disillusioned with what was happening on the pitch that actually it felt like the negative energy that would be built up during that protest would then be taken into the stadium and then would negatively affect the team. And that was why I had some reservations on it. But now I think actually, because Gary Rowett has seemingly turned things, or the tide is starting to turn, I feel, I mean, I'll be going along to the protest, but mainly from the point of view of getting some coverage of it for our website and our channels. But I would probably have gone anyway now if I was just going down as solely as a fan, because I feel like when you go through the turnstile, actually, you're gonna leave that outside the ground, and then you're gonna go in and you're gonna back the team because you feel like there's something on the pitch for you to get behind now. Tom, would you say? I'm interested in your thoughts on my opinion, but also your opinion on that.
Yeah, I think we have to be able to hold both thoughts in our head at the same time. I think this decline and a lot of these errors have been happening for years now. And a couple of results, as brilliant as they are, shouldn't take away from the fact that that's not good enough. We shouldn't have to be in a position where we're having a serious conversation about getting relegated to League One, to be open and honest about structural failings at the football club, or perhaps even a lack of awareness or the right attitude at the higher upper echelons of the club, recognizing that there is a problem here. So for me, I would go to the protests if I could. But yeah, for me, as soon as you're in the ground, you'd still want to be able to support the boys. And I think it's important that we do that and be able to be across both sides of that argument at the same time. There's a lot of people that may not agree with the protest. For them, I would just say, just try and keep an open mind as well. But at the end of the day, once we're in the ground, we all have to be on the same page. We want that result, and probably more than anything, want a clean sheet. I certainly do. So,
oh, he said it now. With the clean sheet klaxon's gone off again. Joe,
I said I wanted one. I didn't say we're going to get one.
I know, but you just can't utter the words. As soon as you utter the words, it doesn't happen. Joe, you're going on Saturday. You're planning to go to the protest. Do you feel at this moment in time that you are capable of lending your voice to both your dissatisfaction with the ownership and then get behind the team come 12:30 when the whistle goes?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I said a few weeks ago, that might not have been the case. It might have been one long protest, but that's all we ever say, isn't it? You want your team to put some effort in, and I'll be there, and I'll be protesting. I'm protesting the points deduction. I'm protesting the shoddy way this club has been run for the last 4 or 5 years. I'm protesting a lack of transparency. I'm protesting all these things. Well, I'm not protesting Leicester City Football Club. I'm not shouting. I'm a Leicester fan. One of my favourite things to do in the world is to go down and watch Leicester City play football. So when I get in there, of course I'll be giving it some. And actually, you mentioned my son. He's 15. He's not interested in any of this stuff. He's aware of it, but he's not interested in it. He just wants to go and watch the football. And so I can completely go along with anyone that feels like that. For me, if you want to see things change, you've got to speak up in all walks of life. And I don't want to see the club run like this anymore. But do I want to see the boys win on Saturday? Absolutely, and we'll be in the singing section as always, singing our hearts out. And I just think you can do both. And I find it a bit weird that people, but don't. For me, my personal opinion is that you can still think the Ties did some good stuff. Vichai did some good stuff and win the league, but the last 5 years have just been completely unacceptable, and I don't really see the viewpoint that you can't be upset about that. We're facing relegation to League One. There's been some terrible decisions, but really looking forward to the match. So it's a funny one. It's not often you're talking like this before a match, really, is it? You're going to be stood outside the ground getting angry, and then I'm going to be in the match. Like, come on, lads. But that's what's going to happen, So it sort of feels like a healthier thing. I think that's probably the word. A healthier sort of conversation now that we can separate the team on the pitch and the ownership, because, like you say, Rob, it was just all getting into one murky puddle of disappointment, really, wasn't it?
It was indeed. Let's just go to the comments. Thank you to those of you watching live. If you've not commented yet and you want to say something, please do. Andy Mora, for fuck's sake, is saying, I think I'd be there if I was going. Andy's actually going across to Italy to watch Jamie Vardy in action, and that's why I've pinched his ticket this weekend. And I'm not just driving down the M1 from Sheffield just to join the protest. I am actually pinching Andy's ticket as well. On the other side of that, Manny, thank you for your comment, saying anyone who's heard me knows I do not support the protests. I share frustration with many decisions, but it's tasteless. Topper's lost his father and hundreds of millions to this club. And I think nobody's disputing either of those two facts, but I'd say I'd sort of caption what you've said there, Joe, in the sense that the last 4 or 5 years have been unacceptable from a business point of view. And that doesn't change the fact that Vichai passed away tragically. And would we be in this position if he was in charge? Probably not. But he's not in charge, and that is the fact. And business-wise, Leicester City Football Club is not being run the way it should be. Decisions have been made that have caused us to be in this position. But thankfully, we are able to separate the club and the team at the moment. Tony saying there has to be a change if the club moves forward. Protest outside and then get behind the side inside. Yeah, Tony, agree with that, absolutely. Michael saying all get behind the protesters, but then more than anything, we want/need the 3 points. Yeah, I think people will be going into that with the same mindset. So I guess the last sort of question we need to discuss is how do we go about getting those 3 points? And we've talked a lot this evening about the application of the players, the mental fortitude of the players has clearly significantly increased since Gary Rowett came in. There's an interesting, I think the only real positional thing is out wide. Few people thinking that Mavadidi is basically just getting a game because there's not really anybody else that can replace him, because Monga kind of came in, didn't really do a lot. He's been in and out of the team. He's only 16. I wonder, this is just coming to my mind now, because Decordova-Reid back from suspension in midweek, played on the right-hand side with Fatawu not being fit enough to start. Gary Rowett said that Fatawu should be able to start on Saturday. So I wonder if you pop Decordova-Reid out to the left-hand side, Fatawu down the right, Mukasa through the middle, Mavadidi on the bench, and say, look, you've not had enough of an impact in games recently, but you will. Decordova-Reid's not played more than an hour in a Leicester shirt since forever. He always seems to come off as soon as it ticks into 60 minutes. So you're going to get the last half an hour to come on. Maybe Decordova-Reid could be rewarded for a sort of job well done on the right-hand side. Start on the left. He can basically play anywhere, can't he? And then Fatawu comes back in on the right-hand side. Dak has got to start up front, surely, because he's better than you. Tom, how does the front four look for you?
You pretty much nailed it for me. I think Bobby had a really good game. I think he brought a lot of energy to the side. So it would seem quite unfair to me to drop him from that. Mavadidi, a bit controversial as a figure, I guess. I still think I saw more out of him in that first 45 than I have in a long time, but I would prefer him coming off the bench with a point to prove and a bit of a rocket up him if we're going to see the best from him. He's not had a great season. So I think we saw when Fatawu came on late in that game against Borough that it was just, he's quality. You know, he's knocking it between players and running onto it and creating opportunities. So I think you've got to slot him back in on the right-hand side and probably move Bobby out left.
Yeah. Prediction time very, very soon for those of you watching along live. So do get your predictions in. We'll be wrapping up in a couple of minutes' time. Predictions in terms of score lines. If you want to go a little bit further in terms of how the game's going to go, who's going to score, whatever, then please do feel free. A couple of minutes before we give our own thoughts on that. Joe, team selection-wise, anything stand out for you? Any decisions you'd make?
Yeah, I mean, the Steffi one's, it's a funny one, isn't it? This season, if I think about the team, there'll be a few things I remember. And like one is Luke Thomas getting beaten or not failing to stop a cross or whatever it is. Another one's going to be Steffi Mavadidi somehow missing an open goal or an absolute sitter. Seems to have done that a lot this season. And it's a real funny one. His drop-off has been... I saw a little stat today. I think he's got 2 goals and 1 assist. Well, Jeremy Monga's got 1 goal and 2 assists in like a quarter of the minutes. I mean, I don't particularly, Jeremy Monga hasn't really pulled up any trees, unfortunately. But yeah, that I think probably putting Bobby Reid there is a good shout. I quite liked Abdul just coming on late. That's quite a nice thing. A luxury that we probably don't have, but running at tired defenders later on in the game. But yeah, it's a shame really, because he was great for us in the last championship season, and then I like the player, but he just doesn't seem to have any real goal threat, and I think a benching would help that. So and yeah, like. What are we going to do about the defence? Does Lascelles come straight in? You don't particularly want him to come off the bench, I don't think. That's what Rowett sort of seemed to say the other day. He prefers his defenders to do the whole game. Luco, I still think there's a case for him. Ricardo Pereira's looked a lot better, just doing general defending. So yes, there's not much to be done with the defence. Like you say, I think probably just drop Mavadidi and put Bobby Reid on. Yeah, and he goes off at exactly 60 minutes, doesn't he? Like Brendan Rodgers used to do his subs. So yeah, I'm with you on that one.
Yeah, Rowett said just quickly on the defence before we get your predictions that are coming in thick and fast. And Tom and Joe, you need to be thinking of yours, because I'll ask you that question very shortly. Gary Rowett said it's going to be a real case of making sure that Lascelles and James come back at the right time with the right amount of minutes, because he doesn't want them to sort of have the impact, say, Saturday lunchtime, and then miss the next few, or worsen an injury that's maybe not fully healed. He did also say he's going to have to put the arm up the back of a few of the medical staff to make that decision. So a little bit of a sort of contradiction there of his own viewpoint. But yeah, I think if neither of them are fully ready, then I think both of them are going to be so integral to keeping Leicester in this division that keeping them fit is the top priority. So if they can't start on Saturday to give themselves a little bit more rest, I think that absolutely has to be done. Let's have a look at the predictions coming in on the comments before we get the thoughts of Tom and Joe. Tony saying Leicester 2, Norwich 0, clean sheet. There it is. The clean sheet klaxon is sounded again. Andy Moore also saying 2-0 Leicester with Bobby Dickard over Reed and Patson Daka to score. Michael going a little bit more conservative, 1-1. Amit saying 2-1 Leicester, a win, but the search for a clean sheet continues. So those are the predictions coming so far. You've literally got a minute or so if you're watching live to get your prediction in, if you haven't already. Joe, we'll come to you first. What's going to happen on Saturday?
I'm going big. I think we are gearing up to giving someone a pasting. Yeah, that is quite silly to say out loud, but that's what we'll get. That's what's going to happen. It's going to be a 3-0 clean sheet, great goals, king power singing. Come on, we deserve it. Let's do it.
Are you trying to manifest this so that your trip up from Somerset's worth it?
Every time. It's a bloody long way to come for a shitty defeat. I must admit, pardon my French, but yeah.
I'm here for the optimism. 3-0 Joe's saying. Tom, what do you reckon?
I think there's going to be a unique set of circumstances this weekend. I think Norwich are going to walk in with a game plan, and I think that game plan is going to be slightly dated. I also think there's going to be a lot of energy from the protests, and people are going to be fired up, and I think that's going to be brought straight into the stadium with them. And I think it's going to be 2-0, and I do think it's going to be a clean sheet.
The clean sheet klaxon sounds one more time. I am going to wrap up the show by kind of backing Joe, but I don't think I can get on board with the clean sheet brigade just yet. So I'm going to go 3-1, but a comfortable 3-1, maybe something like the first half performance we saw against Southampton, where we absolutely blew them away, but just without the second half capitulation, because I just don't think that happens with a Gary Rowett side. And I also think that Leicester will be much better if they get themselves a couple of goals up, and then, right, lads, let's dig in now and let's hold on to that, because they proved that they can hang on to a result against Borough on Tuesday night. So there we go. We're all, apart from one commenter, we're all predicting a win for Leicester City with at least 2 goals on Saturday. We will, of course, on For Fox's Sake, keep you across all that goes on in terms of the protests as well as the match for foxsake.news and across all of our socials. Please give us a follow on social media and subscribe to our YouTube channel if you have not already. Thank you very much for watching. Thanks to Tom and Joe for joining us. Hopefully the next show we have is after a win for Leicester City under Gary Rowett. Wouldn't that be nice?